Right, so in the previous lesson, I registered a new domain name, and in my situation, I've got an existing server, which is with SiteGround, brackets not affiliated, and I wanted to register a new domain name to point to my existing hosting and build my website on there. That's scenario one, the more complicated part. Normally, the normal situation is that I or you will go to set up a new website and go to a company like SiteGround. Others are available, and you'll say I want a new website. You'll choose how much you want to spend. The more you spend, the better your hosting will likely be. You register a domain name and it will go through, and you'll get emails telling you everything's great, just come back and it's all sorted out. I would always recommend giving it a day or two just to let this propagation, which we talked about, get itself sorted out. So the normal way, most common way rather, is yes, you register with a company, buy your domain, choose your hosting, and you'll go through and it will show you a control panel, at which point you can start installing your website, WordPress in this example. So this lesson is really for those people who are interested or curious or are in a situation of having existing hosting with a company, have bought a new domain name and want to tell the hosting company about their new domain name. If that's not you, don't have to sit through this lesson. Go straight on to the next one about setting up WordPress. If, however, you've got hosting, you've bought a new domain name which you want to point to that hosting, and you need to tell your hosting company about the new domain name, then this lesson is for you. So we're going to go get a bit techie, but we're going to try and keep it as non-techie as possible as well, so we can keep everybody happy. All right. So let's take my situation first. I've got hosting with SiteGround. It's a shared hosting server, cloud-based private server. I've got lots actually, but this is just one I'm going to use for this exercise. And I want to point this new domain name that I purchased through SiteGround as well. So they've got the domain name management and they've got the hosting, and I want to link the two together. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, so we're going to go through to that. If you registered your domain name separate to your hosting company and you still want to point it, that's no problem. We'll cover that towards the end of this lesson. First situation, I've got SiteGround, they've got my hosting server, they've got my domain name, and I want to tell SiteGround that my domain name wants to point to a website on my existing server. Alright, so I'm going to put my specs on so I can read the screen. I wasn't blind. And we're going to go from there. Alright, so screen, I'm logged into SiteGround, and nearly every hosting company out there these days uses something called cPanel. cPanel, and I've got a button here under my account, is where you can manage your account. So I go to cPanel and it will open up this, and I put in my password, which I shall avoid reading out, which is what I always do and forget. And I got it wrong. I know why that is. Okie dokie. So this is cPanel. It is fairly old and it works, which is why everybody uses it. It might look differently. There's these themes here, so you can make it look a bit fancier, like that. But the most common one is the old-fashioned looking one, which is like that. Okay, and that's the one I'll stick with because that tends to be what people tend to use. So this is cPanel. Lots to be scared of, lots to ignore, and all of these icons do stuff with which you won't use. You probably use, I use these top 5 here. It's probably all I ever use. So what we're going to do here is, remember that I've got my hosting already with SiteGround. I want to add on my new domain name to point to it. So I'm logged into my hosting account with SiteGround. This is my cPanel, my control panel for SiteGround, for my hosting account. This is my account at the top here, and I want to add on my new domain name to point to this hosting, and therefore, not surprisingly, it is called add-on domains. Now mine's here, frequently accessed areas, so this is my little list here. Yours won't be on there, I suspect, not until after you've done it at least once. So I scroll down here to the boxes called domains, and it's an add-on domain. So add-on domains are domains that I've registered elsewhere, even if it's with SiteGround, that I want to add on to this hosting account. You can see why the majority, the most popular, most common situation is that most people won't need to do this. They go to a hosting company, they register hosting with a domain name, and it's all done. Anyway, add-on domains. So my new domain name, if you remember, it was called clubof10.com. That's the domain name. I pressed tab there and it filled up here. Subdomain or FTP username. Leave it at that. That's just for if I'm logging in via something called FTP. Don't worry about that. Document route. Where on my server do I want to host it? This is up to you. I put everything under sites/clubof10.com. This is the folder, the directory on your shared server where you want to put everything. So I have /site/ and whatever website, so it's all in one place. And I put a password. Which will be used for FTP if I want to transfer files to the server. And I add domain. And what that's doing is telling SiteGround that this domain, clubof10.com, is now going to point to the server. Or rather, the server, to get it correct, the server should request accepts for this domain name to here. Because I registered the domain name with SiteGround, clubof10.com is already pointing to SiteGround as a whole, and what I've just done is told within SiteGround, the server, when the domain name hits SiteGround, it then should go to this serving account, this hosting account that I've got. So domain name going to SiteGround and then goes to my server. In a second, if you register the domain name somewhere else, it's not even pointing to SiteGround, and therefore it can't go to the server. So we'll do that in a second. That's called DNS settings. We'll come on to that. So go back. I've now added clubof10 to this hosting account as an add-on domain, so that with the domain name pointed to SiteGround, the server goes, yes, that's mine, and it will show you the site. Out of pure curiosity, let's go clubof10.com. And there it is. That's now pointing. It was already pointing to SiteGround, remember, because I registered the domain name with SiteGround, so it did that for me. It wasn't pointing to the server, so up until I did that, it was just saying something like, domain name doesn't resolve or something like that. What I just did now there was an add-on domain to say, although the domain name's come to SiteGround, I now want it to come to my hosting account. And I put it into /sites/clubof10.com. And in that folder is a couple of bits and pieces we haven't got to worry about. I'll show you that to you now. So within site panel, top left here always goes home, goes back to C panel. I've now got my add-on domain, happy days. I'm now going to go to file manager, which is the file manager for, and here I choose what I wanted to see. So I'm going to go right through to the I can do document root for my new website. Let's just do that. And that's going to go straight to, and here's all my server. Remember I did /sites, which is that folder there, and on this particular server I've got these websites, including clubof10, which has these files here. And if we go to our website, they match these. So just to prove that it's tying together now, domain name, SiteGround, server with the add-on domain, I'm going to create a new file called index.html. That means nothing to you, don't worry about it. It's basically what the first file that a web browser will look for. And if I edit that, I will put in something like, well, I'm a techie. Techies will know to expect something like hello world. So I've now saved that in this folder here, and if I now go to my website, hello world comes up. So I've now got a web page sitting on clubof10.com. Done. I'm not going to say that's a website, but it's a web page serving content on my website, clubof10.com. Okay, so that's it really. Now, the second scenario is that you register your domain name via somebody else. For example, I often use uk2.net for all of my domain names typically, so that will be over here somewhere. I've then got my hosting on SiteGround, but this doesn't know anything at all. What I have to do is point the domain name of over here that was registered with uk2.net, for example, not affiliated, and point it to SiteGround, and then my add-on domain can say yes, that's me, and it will show what we did before. What I have to do is set what's called a DNS record, domain name server record, okay, and more particularly a record that says this website should go to SiteGround to show the website it's on. It can sound a bit scary, but it's not too bad. So I want to go to, let's go to uk2.net just to use an existing one. So if I log in here, so this is totally separate to SiteGround. Alright, this is uk2.net, somewhere completely else. When I register a domain name through uk2.net, just a domain name, it means nothing, it doesn't know anything about SiteGround whatsoever. So let's pick one. It really doesn't matter what, simongoodchild.com for the sake of argument. What you need to do is go into the DNS tab. This will look different depending on where you registered your domain name. And then how you do that is to tell that the best thing to do for DNS settings is to set up something called a name server. And a name server basically says everything to do with this domain name, go there and it will sort it out. So you would set up your DNS settings to say for this domain name, go to SiteGround and SiteGround will sort it out. And then our add-on domain will say, yes, that's me, and show the website. So I need to point all of my domain name to SiteGround. How do I do that? Right, let's go back to our SiteGround account, because what I want to do is find out what these name servers would be. So the name servers I set on the domain name are pointing everything to SiteGround. So I need to notice what SiteGround's name servers are. So when I say domain name, these name servers, point your domain name over here. And I'm here. I log in again. And SiteGround's name servers, big old sign saying I'm over here. If I go to my account, it should hopefully say what my name servers are. Here they are, your DNS. Now if you can't work out in your control panel what yours are for your hosting company, give them a call, drop them an email and say what are my name servers, and they will say they are something like ns1.blah-de-blah.com, ns2.blah-de-blah.com. You might have three, ns3.blah-de-blah.com. So they will be different depending on what you want. These are mine, ns1.this.net and ns2.net. So any domain name that has the name server set for those will send all of the traffic on the internet over here and say you sort it out. Okay, the domain name says yep, somebody types in www whatever yourdomain.com. Because the name servers are set to SiteGround, all of everything, emails, website, the lot, will be said, right, they're over there. They're on SiteGround because I've set the name servers for my domain name to SiteGround. And then SiteGround has to do whatever it's going to do, like an add-on domain name to show the website. So what I would do in this instance is copy my name server, copy, and in here I would put paste as my name server 1. And I go to number 2, copy, and I put them in there. And I would save. I'm not going to save them because that's a live domain name. But that would change the domain name to push everything to SiteGround because they're my name servers. And the name servers will then basically say, okay, it's a website. What you want to do is go here and it finds our add-on domain and shows the website and links it all together. The domain name looks for name server settings, fires over to SiteGround. SiteGround says, yep, cool, you're looking for a website. We've set up the add-on domain. It says, yep, I'm here. Shows the website. Boom, boom, boom. If, just have side note, Cloudflare is another service which I'm not going to go into now, but this is another layer which you can use to manage your domain names. So you'd have domain names over here on UK2. It then goes to Cloudflare because I've told it to with the name servers. Cloudflare then does some stuff, caching and files and stuff, and it then has the settings for SiteGround as another step. Maybe we'll cover that in another session if people are interested. Please say so on wpoverlord.com forums, and I will cover Cloudflare. Right, that's it. Yeah, domain name is on UK2. UK2, I've said, look, use the name servers over on SiteGround. SiteGround says, yep, I'm receiving all this stuff coming in. I've got an add-on domain over there, and off it goes and shows the website. So just a bit more complicated if you do stuff separately. If you choose to, Why would you do it? Well, if I have problems with UK2, I can always move those around because I'm happy with my hosting. If I have problems with my hosting, I can then move that, and I've still got domain names over here. I may have clients who I want to register a domain name for, but they've got their own hosting sorted out, or maybe I've got a hosting, but the client's got the domain name and needs to do what I've just done to point their website over here. That's probably the most common scenario. I sort out a hosting for them. They own the domain name, the client, and I just say what you need to do is set your name servers to what we just did, and then I can sort out all of the email and web hosting and what have you. Okay, so that's the two scenarios. So you should only have really watched this, A, if you're slightly curious and a bit masochistic, but B, if you're registered, you've already got hosting and you registered your domain name with the same company that's got your hosting, or you're a separate company and you need to point your domain name over to there. If it's brand new stuff, domain names, website, no one knows about it, there's nothing there, play around with it. None of this stuff cannot be reversed or fixed. And shout out if you need help. Alright, so that is, a bit more techie. Only applicable if you've chosen to, as I say, do hosting and domain name registration. A separate step. Most people, and it may be you may have just sat through this out of curiosity and probably decided it was the right choice by about now, I would have thought, if you're still watching, is that you set up your web hosting, your domain name all in one go with a hosting company. It just did it all for you, because if you just did all of that, you would end up with this sort of screen with whoever you go for, where you've got your domain name here, you've got your hosting sorted out, and you've got your own cPanel, which we'll go on to, and all the rest of it as well. So alright, so that's for those people who had separate domain name and hosting registrations and add-on domains to say this is where this domain is hosted, and even worse, even differently, separate domain name, different company, pointing by use of name servers to your hosting company, and then tidying it up with your add-on domain. Bit techie, wasn't it? Anyway, shout if none of that makes sense, or it makes a bit of sense and you want a bit of help, shout out on the forums on wpoverlord.com and we'll go from there. Other than that, next lesson, we've now got our hosting sorted out. We now want to install WordPress onto our website. We're going to go through a couple of different ways to do that, and you can choose between one-click installs through to doing the installation for you through cPanel, through to using a very manual way of transferring the files up to your server and setting up your database yourself. So sort of 3 levels of complexity of there, and you can choose which is which you want to do. Alright, thanks very much.